Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Anna Vasquez, Board Review Board Manager. I'm going to hand the meeting over to our chair, Chair Boatwright.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jessica Boatwright. I chair the BERDO Review Board, and I'm calling this public hearing to order at 4:36 p.m. In accordance with the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance regulations adopted pursuant to the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance, Boston City Code Ordinances Section 7-2.2, the BERDO Review Board will hold a virtual public hearing at 4:30 p.m. on May 12th, today, to review the following topics in regard to the reduction of greenhouse gases from building energy production and consumption, so as to promote the public health and welfare of Boston residents. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, we are conducting this public meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the BERDO Review Board, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have the opportunity to provide public comment during the public hearing portion of our meeting. To do so, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the Zoom application. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, or you can send your questions to staff via email at berdoreviewboard@boston.gov. For the record again, I am Jessica Boatwright, chair of the board, and I will now conduct a roll call of the board members. Board members, please say your name in the order that they appear on the slide.
Stephen Ellis.
Yeah, thanks.
Lori Ferris.
Gail Lattimore.
Jack Nelson.
Reginald Stovall.
Thank you. And Environment Department staff, can you please introduce yourselves?
Diana Vasquez, BERDO Review Board Manager in the Environment Department.
Hi, everyone. Claudia Diaz Martinez, Policy and Equity Advisor, Environment Department.
Diggy Chen, BERDO Review Board Assistant in the Environment Department.
Hey everyone, Aiden Callan, BERDO Program Manager, Environment Department.
Thank you very much. Here's the agenda for today's meeting. We're going to start with the hearing for a building portfolio. Then we will switch from public hearing to public meeting, where we will vote on one Pathway 1 building portfolio application. Staff will then present a proposal regarding reporting and verification deadline extensions that the board will vote on. Afterwards, we will approve the meeting minutes from April 14th and April 28th and hear administrative updates, and then we will adjourn the meeting. So our first agenda item is the public hearing on building portfolios. The applicant that we'll be hearing from today is the Pine Street Inn, and I will hand the floor over to representatives from Pine Street Inn. If you could introduce yourselves and begin your presentation.
Hello. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Eden Floyd, and I'm the Junior Energy Data Analyst at Power Options. I submitted the portfolio application on behalf of Pine Street Inn, and I'm joined today with Colin Walker, the Senior Director of Facilities and Capital Planning at Pine Street Inn. And you can just go to the next slide. Just to give you all a brief overview of Pine Street Inn and its services, it is the largest homeless services provider in New England, serving over 2,000 people a day. Its two most prominent services are emergency shelter with food both day and night, as well as long-term permanent shelter. Pine Street Inn also provides other services such as recovery services and workforce development. And you can go to the next slide. This portfolio application contains 4 buildings. 2 are in the south end, as pictured here, and on the next side, 2 are in Jamaica Plain. And on our proposed portfolio includes building uses such as healthcare, lodging, multifamily housing, and office spaces. Our proposed blended emission standard would be a limit of 5.8 in 2025 to 2029, then decreasing to 3.7 in 2030, 2.7 in 2035, and then 1.8 in 2040, and finally 0.9 in 2045 before being net zero in 2050. And this application was submitted under Pathway 3 as it does not meet the eligibility criteria that all buildings in the proposed building portfolio must be in compliance with the ordinance and regulations. While the other 3 buildings are in compliance with BERDO's benchmarking for previous years, their property at 44 Harrison Ave is not. To give a little more context on the situation, Pine Street Inn gained ownership of this building in 2023. Prior to that, they were leasing the building and it was not reported for in previous years. Since sometime last year, I've been working with them to get this building into compliance. However, since it has been years since the beginning of the reporting mandate, it has been a challenge to get the complete historical data all the way back to the beginning of 2021. In fact, because of this, we've gotten permission from the BERDO team to start its reporting with 2022 data instead of 2021 data. And where is 444 Harrison Ave at now? So I have submitted the 2022 and 2023 data, which corresponds to the 2023 and 2024 reporting years. And the former is in compliance, while the latter is pending revisions. And this building still needs to be verified. To go over some of Pine Street Inn's decarbonization highlights, Pine Street Inn is committed to electrification efforts and broader sustainability, not just at their BERDO regulated buildings, but across their whole portfolio. This includes low-hanging fruit such as energy efficiency measures like automatic light switches, upgrading windows, weather stripping. They've also replaced some oil and gas heating with electric alternatives, and they have 4 solar rooftop systems, one of which is at 444 Harrison Ave. Pine Street Inn is also currently working with Power Options to develop a decarbonization roadmap for 13 of its buildings. Now for the impact on the residents. While there is no official policy about communication to the residents, plans on retrofitting will be shared during house and shelter meetings. If upgrades call for the temporary relocation of residents, Pine Street Inn will provide these accommodations. Without the portfolio, 2 of Pine Street Inn's buildings are expected to be out of compliance in 2025, one of which is 444 Harrison Ave. Even with the portfolio, Pine Street Inn is still expected to be out of compliance in 2025. However, the portfolio alone can save Pine Street Inn around $43,000 in alternative compliance payments just for next year. Unfortunately, even with these savings, Pine Street is expected to owe heavy payments in the near term, and we estimate them to owe around $32,000 in alternative compliance payments next year, even with the portfolio standard. However, the portfolio application is just our first step. Soon we plan on applying for the short-term hardship compliance plan to take action 2025 after this. And this will give Pine Street Inn the time to look at its portfolio and plan its decarbonization and its emissions compliance plan thoughtfully without having the heavy pressure of a heavy financial burden. Another near-term plan is to apply for BERDO's Building Decarbonization Program, and as mentioned before, Power Options is developing a high-level roadmap to serve as a guide for decarbonization for 13 of Pine Street Inn's buildings. And that is all. Thank you guys for listening. I'll hand it back to the board.
Thank you. Does the Environment Department staff have comments to share with the board?
Sure, I can share some comments. So similarly, as we reviewed the application, we deemed the application complete, and Pine Street Inn applied via Pathway 3. As Eden just summarized, the building with the BERDO ID 10810 is the building that was recently acquired by Pine Street Inn, did not complete previous reporting, but they have since been working with the BERDO reporting team to get this building into compliance. And so with that in mind, staff recommend approving the building portfolio with standard conditions and a special condition that they complete 2023 through 2025 reporting years, parentheses, that is 2022 through 2024 data years, for this building unless the Environment Department determines that reporting specific years cannot be completed, like the example that Eden provided where utility data could not be provided. That's it from staff.
You. I will now ask the board if there are any questions or comments that you would like to discuss. Before we start, I just want to note that if we're entertaining special conditions, like the one that Diana just introduced, we'll have to continue this application to a following hearing in order to review and discuss the special conditions with the applicant. I believe that is correct. Yes.
Yes,
I'll
that is correct.
Okay.
Unless I don't know if Eden or Colin felt comfortable doing it in this moment, but correct.
Okay. So if we can't discuss those special conditions today, we'll have a following hearing, and we also can make requests of the applicant for items we'd like to see in their emission standards compliance plan when it is submitted in 2 years. And as a reminder, requests for the emission standards compliance plan are not considered special conditions. So I guess first I'll just confirm with Eden and Colin, if we were to take the staff recommendations to look at those building years that we're not able to report on today, do you have the ability to talk about what the building use is from those buildings today, or would you need time to come back and discuss that?
I think we can talk about it today. I don't know what you're feeling, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, more time is always good, but to the extent that we can talk about it today, I'm comfortable with that.
Diana?
And I just wanted to mention, it seems like Pine Street Inn is already pretty much almost complete. So I think for um there's the sake of coming back to another meeting, if Eden and Colin felt comfortable today, I think I would recommend voting today.
Okay. So I guess then my first question, before turning it over to other board members is, can you share with us what you have learned about those buildings that are out of compliance, and particularly their 2022 to 2024 energy usage?
Yes, I'll just need one moment to pull that up.
Okay.
Could you repeat the question? What specifically are you looking for?
We are, sorry, I just want to make sure that we're looking for any information that's complete about the 2022 to 2024 data years for the buildings that are out of compliance that are driving this application today.
Yeah, so the
Diana's going to correct my question.
Sorry, I'm just gonna add context maybe. So I think for it's just one building. It's one building that
Okay, the
has
one
not
building.
one building that has not previously been reported. And I think Chair Boatright, please correct me. You're asking what sort of like a status update on completing previous reporting and maybe general projections for emissions in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's fairly close to being in compliance with reporting years 2023, 2024, and 2025. Just for reporting year 2024, it's pending revisions on the BERDO reporting form. And the 2023 reporting year needs to be verified by third-party verifier. In terms of emissions or where it stands in compliance for the next coming years, This building, just give me one moment, please. It is projected to have a greenhouse gas intensity of around 9. It's a fairly big building, and Colin might be able to talk more about the specifics about why it has a higher energy usage intensity.
You're talking about 444 Harrison?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that building is our main shelter. It's an old building. I don't recall the date of its that it was built. But it's a 24/7, it's a 24-hour operation where shelter guests are come in every day, and they have a sort of recurring bed for the night, each night as long as they show up. We also have single residency units in that building, about 12 or 15 of them, and it's also our administrative headquarters. That's the general usage of the building. It's our headquarters. You know, that's the general usage of that building.
Thank you.
Does it have
Thank
a
you.
kitchen too?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we have two kitchens actually. We have a trainee kitchen where we have a training program, and we have the main kitchen where we make about 2,000 meals a day. An estimated 2,000, approximately 2,000 meals a day. So that's
Yes.
yes, thanks for adding that.
That's a big part of it.
Huge part, yes, thanks.
All right, that's helpful. And I see board member Ferris has a question. So if is it a follow-up to this one?
It's a different well, it's related but different question.
Okay, why don't you go and then we'll circle back and go in order. But why don't you ask your question?
Oh, sorry. Well, okay, it's just building on that. I just want to make sure I understood correctly that there were 2 buildings that may not be in compliance. The one that had not previously, is that correct? Or is just the one that you had not previously reported?
So there's one building that is out of compliance with the annual reporting, but beginning this year, we expect 2 buildings to be above the emission standard.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
It does. Yeah. So it's two different issues. One issue, I just want to make sure I understand the application. That one issue is that this building that was recently acquired had not been in compliance but not due to any fault of Pine Street Inn, and then the other 2 buildings are above the emissions threshold as of this year. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. So yeah, that's a great clarification. There's sort of the reporting piece, and then there's the emissions limit piece.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before I hand it off to circle through the board for questions, I just had one question, which was, it looked like in terms of your environmental justice reporting and planning, you had some really helpful maps and illustrations, but I was not clear in terms of what kind of engagement you'll have either with your participants and residents or neighbors around some of the work that you're going to be doing to the buildings. It would be helpful to know a little bit more about that.
So your question is what sort of communication are we or
And what kind of engagement is there going to be around implementation of this plan?
So each of our communities we have case managers and case manager groups. I started with Pine Street Inn about 6 months ago. So this is my first go around with the BERDO implementation, and but I do think in talking with case managers and the program team, we're still in that planning phase of how we're going to communicate this to we have community days, we have community meetings. So I think whichever projects that we take on will be communicated through community meetings and information sessions.
You. Board Member Ellis?
Yes, thank you, Chair Boatwright. First off, thank you, Colin and Eden, for your presentation thus far. My curiosity is surrounding you seeking the short-term hardship, and so knowing that you're seeking short-term as opposed to the long-term hardship, I'm wondering what sort of strategies are you already thinking about employing for at least these two buildings that we keep circling back on that are well above those emission standards. So just tell me a little bit about your decarbonization efforts that you're thinking about using for these locations.
Eden, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can answer the first part. The short-term hardship compliance is really meant as like a first step to give us time to plan around to tackle these two high emitting buildings, especially for Harrison Ave. So we're still in the planning phases with Pine Street, and the short-term hardship plan would just give us more flexibility and time to really look into these buildings.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ian. I just want to encourage that if you find that the long-term hardship would be better for you all, that you at least consider that as an option. I do appreciate the willingness to at least give yourself a little bit of a buffer room to think about your strategies. But knowing about those large kitchens, especially at 444, I suspect unless you intend to electrify that kitchen, I can see how this could be an issue that might be drawn out a little bit longer. So overall, I just wanted to hear about that. So you're still in the planning phases, and so I look forward to seeing how that's highlighted in your decarbonization plan to the city in the near future.
Yeah, that makes sense. We actually do. You mentioned electrifying the kitchen. We're planning a major renovation, redevelopment of the kitchen for efficiency and space efficiency, as well as energy efficiency, and electrifying all of the appliances and the systems for the kitchen is part of the plan. So that's a project that we have FY26 capital planning projects. So that is coming down the pike.
Thank you for that. All right, those are all my questions, and thank you for your work in trying to get those historical data points into the platform. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Boatwright.
Thank you. Board Member Ferris, do you have additional questions?
I don't think so. I do want to make a comment, though, that I really appreciate the way you're describing decarbonizing not just your buildings that are subject to BERDO, but the entire portfolio. And I want to commend you for kind of trying to do the right thing with the buildings instead of just purchasing offsets or coming up with more long-term planning. It sounds like you're really taking it on. So kudos. And I think my questions are probably more related to the coming hardship application than this portfolio application. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Lattimore?
Yes, sorry to be off camera. My camera's not working very well, and I'm in transit to some extent. But I do appreciate the work of Pine Street Inn. I wondered a couple of things. You mentioned training, and I know that Pine Street Inn does various levels of trainings. Wondered about any trainings, if there are any trainings or thoughts about how your residents and participants can learn more about this particular issue and field. It kind of dovetails what Chair Boatwright said about engagement, but also wondered about potential for folks to learn or know, even if it's just shadowing what's happening with the work that is being planned, the decarbonization work. So just curious if there's any trainings right now that relate to in any way energy or efficiency.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question at this point. Pine Street has a lot of training initiatives. In my time here, I haven't crossed the path of seeing any that dealt with broadly this sort of efficiency. But I'll check in with the case manager teams and the community building teams, and if there isn't something, I'll suggest it. But that's a good question and a good thought.
Great, thank you. And also wondered if Pine Street Inn had MWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise Utilization Policy?
I think that we do. Again, I'm still working my way into the, into all things Pine Street. I want to say yes, but I can confirm that another time.
Great. Great. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I look forward to, the answers to those two. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Board Member Nelson.
I have no questions.
Board Member Stovall.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. The building that you are having a problem with getting the records for, what was the intention when you got the building? What are you using it for?
So yeah, so 444 Harrison again is our headquarters. It's our administrative headquarters, and it's our
Oh,
shelter.
no, the new building, the newer one that you just recently acquired. You said you could only go back so many years for the records.
That is 444 Harrison. They were leasing it
Oh.
previously.
Okay, so all this time you weren't paying the utility bills, is that, or was it a dispute over the who was supposed to pay the bill? Is that what happened?
And I can't speak to what the lease terms were in terms of who paid for it, who paid for the utilities. I would assume it was the owner that dealt with that. And since we've acquired it, now it's us.
Okay, all right. I just was trying to figure out, because I knew it was the original location, but then when it came up on the paperwork, I guess I should have sent out a shout out. The next thing, I just was curious if you guys have an issue with the retrofits and everything else. Do you have a contingency plan in place for, if things run over, or if suddenly you have to move some of the residents or half your residents out? Are you prepared for all of those things?
Yes, we are. We have residents. Emergency moves happen quite, not frequently, but often, and so we have plans. Typically utilizing our shelter operations for short-term stays if a building needs to be vacated.
Okay, the only reason I was asking is because of the age of the building. You may have upgraded it, but then you go and open a wall or something like that, and the next thing you know, you've got to deal with asbestos or something like of that nature.
Yeah,
so that's kind of why I asked that question.
No,
And
that's a good question.
I know what it's like to be, having no place to live, and I was more concerned for the residents than the environmental aspect at this point. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Give the chair back.
You, Board Member Stovall. Before we turn over for public comment, do any other board members have additional questions? Okay. So we will now open the meeting to public comment. As a reminder to members of the public, to provide public comment, you can use the raise your hand function or type in the chat via Zoom. And if you're on the phone and you can't use Zoom, you can either press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send comments to the staff at BERDO@boston.gov. Are there any comments from the public on this application? All right, seeing none, are there any further discussions or questions from the board, or is there a motion regarding approving the application? It can, as a reminder, it can be a motion to approve with standard conditions, or a motion to continue this hearing to discuss potential special conditions. There is a recommendation from staff that we approve the building portfolio with standard conditions and a special condition that Pine Street Inn completes 2023 to 2025 reporting years, which are the 2022 to 2024 data years for the Harrison Avenue property, unless the Environment Department determines specific reporting years that cannot be completed. So that is a recommended motion that we can take. Yes, Board Member Ellis.
I thank you, Chair Boatright. I just want to seek clarification from the city, because maybe I'm getting lost in the jargon here. Diana, if we were to approve this with the special condition as recommended by staff, why would we need to go to, it sounds like we need to go to another hearing. I feel comfortable enough to essentially move forward with this special condition as laid out by staff rather than the need to have another hearing.
Yes, great question, Board Member Ellis. I think initially the thought was we'd want to, converse with the applicant, ensure that they feel comfortable with that special condition. Given that it seems like Pine Street and Power Options are already on board and are completing the special condition, I would feel comfortable if both Colin and Eden felt comfortable with the special condition being that they complete reporting. If they gave us a verbal agreement,
Yes,
during this meeting.
I'm comfortable.
Same here.
Great. Okay. So in that case, I think we can vote today.
Okay, I'll pause to see if any of our other, fellow board members have any, other conditions that they would like to propose, but you already know where I stand, so I'll hand the floor back over to you, Chair Board.
So just to clarify, then the recommendation is that there's a vote to approve and there is an agreement that that reporting is going to be submitted for staff review.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, then. So
All right.
no worries.
Go for it.
But this is my role apparently. I motion to approve Pine Street Inn's building portfolio with standard conditions and a special condition that they complete the 2023-2025 reporting years, which represents the 2022 to 2024 data years as agreed, unless the Environment Department determines reporting specific years cannot be completed.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Great. Is there any other discussion needed? All right, on the motion to approve Pine Street Inn's application, I'm gonna repeat it incorrectly, but the motion is to approve Pine Street Inn's application with standard conditions and a special condition that they complete the 2023 to 2025 reporting for the BERDO building ID 100810, unless the Environment Department determines reporting for those specific years cannot be completed. There's a second, so I will now call on the board. How do you vote? In favor, opposed, or abstain? I vote in favor. Board Member Ellis.
In favor.
Board Member Ferris.
In favor.
Board Member Lattimore.
In favor.
Board Member Nelson.
In favor.
Board Member Stovall.
In favor.
All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes. Pine Street Inn's building portfolio has been approved. Per regulation, the Environment Department will send a copy of the written decision within a written decision letter within 7 days. So we are now going to move into our second agenda item, which means we are switching from a public hearing to a public meeting. So I am closing the public hearing and calling the public meeting in order at 5:11 p.m. We will hear some information about a building portfolio application and discuss and then vote on the application. I will turn it over to Diana to tell us about the application.
Sure thing. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Pine student. We didn't say this explicitly, but you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting unless you would like to. Um, so yes, I'm happy to present on BXP Incorporated's building portfolio application. Next slide, please, Ziggy. So just as a reminder, BXP submitted their application through Pathway 1. It's for 9 buildings. They're located in the neighborhoods of Wharf District, Roxbury, Back Bay, and the West End. The applicant staff reviewed the application and deemed that the applicant met all of the eligibility criteria, and the application was deemed complete after we did do some back and forth to get some of the data up to date, but now it is deemed complete. And so with the Pathway 1, you can approve with standard conditions. Here's just a reminder of what the standard conditions are. So timely compliance with reporting and third-party verification moving forward. Timely compliance with the requirements of Section XIB, which is the Emission Standard Compliance Plan. So those are not actually applicable to Pathway 1. So it's actually not applicable to this application. And then the review board or its designee may inspect a building that is part of an approved building portfolio at reasonable times with reasonable notice. Next slide. So BXP's list is for 9 buildings. Here are the 9 with their each BERDO ID and matching addresses for each of those BERDO IDs. Next slide. And then the different building use types. So most of the buildings are majority office space, but there's also assembly, food sales and service, retail, storage, and technology science. There are 9 buildings, and because the majority of the buildings are office space, the blended emission standard is actually not very different from the office space default emission standard. So the blended emission standard is 5.4 in 2025 through 2029, 3.2 in 2030, 2.4 in 2035, 1.6 in 2040, 0.8 in 2045, and then 0 in 2050. And I can also provide staff comments. As I mentioned, initially with BXP's building portfolio application, we had a little bit of back and forth just to get some of the data up to date and completed. Once that was done, the application was deemed complete, and the applicant does meet all eligibility criteria, and all of the information was provided would seem to be accurate. So staff recommends approving with standard conditions. Thank you, and I think I hand it back to you, Chair.
I lost my video for 1 minute. I'm going to try to turn my video on again and cross my fingers. All right. Thank you for the presentation. Before I ask each board member if they have any questions or comments, I want to give the opportunity for any representative of this application to introduce themselves for the record. Is anyone here from BXP?
Thank you, Board Member Jessica. This is Neeta Siddharth. I'm Sustainability Director at BXP, and I'm joined by Dan Shanahan, who is the VP of Property Management, and Elizabeth Morse, who is a Property Manager under Property Management.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I will now ask each board member if they have any questions or comments. I will begin with Board Member Ellis.
Well, just hello to me too. Good to see you again. But I did not have any questions regarding this application. I thought it was pretty straightforward as a Pathway 1 application. So I'll turn my time back over to you, Board Member, excuse me, Chair Boat.
Board Member Ferris.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Board Member Lattimore.
No questions.
Board Member Nelson.
No questions.
And Board Member Stovall.
No questions. I yield it back.
All right. And I also really appreciate the application. I don't have questions today. Are there any other questions from board members? All right. Is there a motion to approve BXP's application with standard conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal with standard conditions.
I will second the motion. So on the motion to approve BXP's application with standard conditions, how do you vote? In favor, opposed, or abstain? I vote in favor. Board Member Ellis,
In favor.
Board Member Ferris,
In favor.
Board Member Lattimore,
In favor.
Board Member Nelson,
In favor.
Board Member Stovall.
In favor.
All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes. BXP's building portfolio has been approved. For the regulations, the Environment Department will send a copy of the written decision letter within 7 days. I want to thank the representatives from BXP for being here tonight and for your complete application. We look forward to hearing your reporting as time passes.
Thank you to the board.
This,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. So our third agenda item is a discussion and vote on procedures for 2025 BERDO reporting and verification extensions. As a reminder, each year building owners subject to BERDO must complete energy reporting, and the deadline to complete reporting this year is May 15th, this week. The ordinance does lay out a process that allows the review board to grant extensions on this deadline for building owners facing extenuating circumstances. I will now hand it over to the city so they can present on their proposal for this year.
Thank you, Jessica. All right. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aidan Callan, the BERDO program manager. I work primarily on the energy reporting piece of BERDO. So just noting some of the language and the ordinance and regulations here pertaining to its extension requests and the role of the review board as it relates to extension requests. The ordinance language, the review board shall develop a procedure for establishing alternative reporting dates for building owners who supply timely notification of extenuating circumstances. Then you write the regulations. A request must explain the extenuating circumstances that make an owner unable to complete the report or third-party verify by the deadline and must be submitted prior to the applicable deadline. So such requests must comply with any procedures created by the review board, and the review board may grant a request for an alternate reporting date and or third-party verification deadline for a period not to exceed 6 months. So next slide. So as Jessica mentioned, the reporting deadline is May 15th this year, as it is every year. And just noting that, pretty significant updates have been made just to the platform itself that building owners need to log on to complete a BERDO reporting form. We've made some changes to the form itself in terms of the questions that we're asking. So just noting that the reporting process is, there have been a couple of tweaks made since last year. So, some building owners might be going in this year and not just sort of checking all the boxes that they had done last year. There's, we want to be more refined in the questions that we're asking, especially those supplemental questions that pertain to calculating their emissions in their building. So last year, we requested that the review board allow for the Environment Department to grant 2 3-month extension requests in 2024. So, last year we requested, to be able to process extension requests to August 15th. So that's the first 3-month extension. And then, while we were, planning to be more stringent with that second extension request, we ended up having to put a lot more through than we anticipated because both Eversource and National Grid happened to go through an account number change in both of their systems, and so that did cause a lot more delay, unfortunately, with data requests. So we are really, not anticipating kind of blanket full extension requests moving forward, particularly, as next year is 2026, and there are deadlines beyond just reporting your data. By May 15th, building owners are going to have to show that they're in compliance with emissions limits as well. And so we are not next year going to to be able to give as much breathing room, and we have to be far more stringent with extensions moving forward. And again, mentioning the authority that the review board has to develop this procedure for alternative reporting dates for building owners who supply that timely notification of their circumstances. Next slide. So here is the proposed procedure. So the review board will delegate authority to approve those 3-month extension requests to the Environment Department for those building owners who show their extenuating circumstances. And they will be able to file for extension requests starting this week. Tomorrow, building owners will be able to go in and see that the extension request option is open to them. That filing procedure, so those that cannot meet the deadline can file for up to 3-month extensions. And here are those extenuating circumstances that we've outlined. These are similar to last year. So it may be that one or more utility is just unable to provide the necessary data in time. That is probably the most common request that we receive for extensions. I put my data request in with Eversource, a couple weeks ago. I've been back and forth by email. It just doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get the data in time. Or I, reached out to my property manager to request this bill to be able to put in that usage. Utility related information is really the primary reason why folks do have trouble getting this data in by May 15th. It could be that the building is in a verification year, so that the building owner has to not only report their data to the city, but also have to get a third party to review that data, make sure that the building characteristics are correct, and that the energy reported does in fact represent the energy of that building. But those verifiers have their own timelines, and they have their own clients, and oftentimes, their timeline extends beyond May 15th. And it could be that the building owner is just waiting on information from the BERDO team, from the Environment Department. And we have a lot of back and forth through email with building owners, and we try to be as timely as we can. But at the end of the day, it could still be that there's information that's outstanding that they're waiting on us for. And in those cases, we want to be able to grant them extensions. And then any other circumstances, we want them to explain what it is they're up against, and then we'll review and determine ourselves if we consider it an extenuating circumstance. Next slide. So here's how building owners would do it. Would file an extension request. So they would go and they would log onto their BERDO reporting platform. They would claim their buildings. And then there's just this extension request option. And they are taken to that page that outlines those extenuating circumstances. They can select from which one is relevant to them. They can add a comment next to the extenuating circumstance that pertains to them, and then they have the option to upload supporting documentation to back that up. We will then review, confirm all of that application, and then either approve or deny the request. Next slide. So we're requesting that the review board vote on the following proposal. To delegate authority to the Environment Department this year to approve 3-month extension requests for building owners facing extenuating circumstances, contingent upon adherence to the outlined filing process. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aiden. I will now ask each board member if they have any questions or comments, beginning with board member Ellis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aiden, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with the engagement with utilities, and I'll note that I'll probably be asking these questions over and over again as we continue on, with this ordinance itself. So, knowing that utilities is one of the largest regions, or for building owners to be seeking extensions, I guess I'm wondering about the city's sort of role or power, or ability to work with the utilities to remind them about their role in terms of providing this data set. And I'm kind of reminded by the presentation that we just saw with Pine Street Inn and the struggles that they were going through. So can you tell us a little bit about what the city of Boston is currently doing with respects to engagement with the following utilities that provide or need to provide that information to building owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's sort of short and long-term goals here. Ultimately, we want to work towards a world where building owners or whoever else is reporting for a building each year is not spending significant time just getting the data and then entering it into Portfolio Manager and then reporting it to the city. So prior to joining the city, I actually reported to BERDO for about 5 years on behalf of a lot of my clients, and it's time consuming. And if you have a large portfolio, there's just always these edge cases that just add up. And yeah, we want to continue to push for as much sort of automation as possible, where a building owner can go log on to their Portfolio Manager account and just see their data populated, and know that all they have to do is go into the BERDO reporting form, fill that out, and hit submit, and not have this sort of back and forth with the utilities each year. So in the short term, what we're continuing to push for is the ability for those utility companies to have a process where a building owner can go to them, they can give them all their service addresses that tie to that building, and then the utilities can turn around and just populate that data right directly into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and continue to populate it each month. And so right now, Eversource historically has not been able to do that. It's had to be sort of an outside platform. You go, you log on, you enter your service addresses, and then you get that data. So now they're building out the ability right now to integrate directly with Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So that's a huge step in the right direction. And they're going to be able to take advantage of all of the requests that people have built over time. So we're hopeful that will smooth the process over starting next year. It's possible that it will come live later this year, but certainly not for this year's reporting period. So that will be a huge step in the right direction. When I reported to BERDO, I probably spent about 80% of my time back and forth with the utility companies, getting the data request each year. Even if I kind of knew what I was doing and just going through the motions, this still took a significant amount of time. So to have that one-time setup process and to bypass all of that just allows more time for people to focus on their buildings. So that's with Eversource, and then with National Grid, they currently have the ability to do both, to give folks data by email, or to integrate directly with Portfolio Manager. Unfortunately, their Portfolio Manager integration is limited to one service address at a time. So there are a lot of properties out there that just can't take advantage of that. And we want National Grid to be able to build out the ability for folks to say, here are the 5 service addresses that cover this building. Push all of the data that comes through these service addresses to my account. So they're currently looking into that, and again, pretty encouraged by what we're seeing there. But longer term, the state of Massachusetts is currently requiring that statewide buildings report their data to the state. But they are requiring that the utility companies send the aggregate data directly to the state, sort of bypassing the building owner in that process. So as a result of that, the utility companies are having to now figure out how to best do that, how to best build the infrastructure for that automation. And so longer term, I don't know if this would be ready for next year, but I think Boston stands to benefit from just the state requiring that the utility companies better build out the infrastructure internally on their end, to be able to handle those types of automation requests. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to over the next few years.
Thank you, Aidan. And just to clarify, I'm assuming you're talking about the large building energy reporting, sort of benchmarking that is required by the state. So just to clarify, because I heard you mention Eversource and National Grid, but I'm curious about your relationships as well with Vicinity and Boston Water and Sewer Commission.
Yeah, so with Vicinity, I can't speak to their automation. I know folks usually just go directly to their Vicinity bills, and enter in that information. I wish I could share more. I think it's been really been the focus has been Eversource and National Grid when it comes to improving automation of these processes. Whereas folks have just really relied on the steam bills for Vicinity, for example. So I can't speak to the automation capabilities of Vicinity at this time. And Boston Water and Sewer has historically just been, building owners would go online, find their historical water data through their account or directly from their bill copies, and enter it in manually into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And that is something that we want to continue to work with Boston Water and Sewer to automate. If right now they don't have the ability to push to Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and I think for the purposes of reporting energy and planning for emissions, our focus has been more on Eversource and National Grid and ensuring that process has been as automated as possible, particularly because the building owners have to request aggregate whole building data, and they don't have access to their tenant data, and so they have to go to Eversource and National Grid to request this information. Whereas they can almost always go to their Boston Water and Sewer bill copies. But I think pushing more on Boston Water and Sewer to move towards a more automated process is a step in the right direction there. So I can't speak to specific actions that we're taking right now on that, but I would agree that would be a step that we'd want to take.
Okay. Thank you, Aidan. That's helpful to know that it's something that you're still considering, despite knowing that National Grid and Eversource are the main ones. Two more questions for you. You mentioned having been a reporter for BERDO, and I share the boat with you. Or at least I sit on the same boat as you. And so one of the things that I am concerned about, particularly for, organizations or, energy professionals that are reporting on behalf of another set of BERDO buildings, is that, we kind of wait until this week to launch these extension requests, especially if we know the issues are going to take well beyond the May 15th period. And we've been fortunate thus far for the last few years that we've had quorum to be able to give the city the power to do this. And so one of my questions is it possible for the review board and the environment department to engage on this topic 2 weeks ahead of the reporting schedule, as opposed to waiting till the week of? Because I can think that this might alleviate some of the pressure that building owners are sort of thinking about, or reporters are thinking about during this time.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think it was a lot of certainly alleviating pressure on all fronts. But I think it was a matter of the scheduling conflicts this time around. and not having a meeting last week, for example. But yeah, I agree. I think looking ahead to a more sort of having it on the books earlier, in late April, for example, could be a best practice moving forward.
Thank you. Diane and Ziggy, I'll look to y'all to make sure that that's possible. And my last question, just to clarify, can you go back to the slide where you are discussing what you would like the board to approve? I just want to make sure I'm correct, or make sure I'm understanding the language. All right, so approve 3-month extension requests. Is that the up to 2 3-month extension request that you're asking for, similar to last year?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll turn my time back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Board Member Ferris, do you have any questions?
I guess I'm just curious, since I wasn't here last year for this process, how on that bullet point allows sort of other conditions at the bottom, and I'm wondering how city staff evaluate those conditions.
Yeah, there really were not many last year that fell into the other category. And off the top of my head, I wish I had some specific examples to bring, but really wanted to make sure that, was this person able to report their data on time? What did these extenuating circumstances genuinely prevent them from reporting? But by May 15th, we get other. I think there were a few requests and some folks just saying, yeah, look, I just didn't get to it until this week, and it's going to take me a little bit longer than I thought. And that technically is just not an extenuating circumstance for us. So, we would really have to evaluate holding it to the standards that we've outlined for the other extenuating circumstances. So I wish I had more examples to bring at this time.
No, that's fine. That helps. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I'm just gonna, for Lori's question, I'm just gonna provide 2 that I think I can recall. One related to the transfer of ownership, and the transfer of ownership may not have gone through, so it's hard for that building owner to confirm or deny whether or not they claim responsibility for reporting. And then the other one is surrounding vacancy of the property, and trying to figure out, was that property in fact vacant for the majority of the year versus does it need to provide enough data in terms of reporting its energy? So those are the only 2 that I can sort of spitball were extenuating circumstances that I can recall getting a approved extension.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Lattimore, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Board Member Nelson,
No questions.
Board Member Stovall.
No question.
Thank you. I do have just one question, which is, if you do not file for an extension and you do not submit in a timely manner, what is the what's the protocol?
Well, the door is still open. So, we're still, accepting submissions and are really just going to work with everybody to make sure that they're able to report as quickly as possible. There is not you didn't get the extension request in, by May 15th. Then you didn't report, it's too late. We've always really tried to continue to work with folks, make sure that they're engaged, onboard them in this process as well as we can. But in issuing non-compliance notices by email or sending mail of non-compliance, that the fact that they have an extension request out, puts them out of that bucket. They're engaged with us. They're working with us. They're in compliance for our purposes. So, yeah, there isn't a sort of a door that we're shutting behind folks that don't make it there.
Do you know how many letters of non-compliance you had to issue last year? Were there any?
Yeah. So let's see here. So off the top of my head, let me try to find. Let me try to find that number here.
Would also, if it's a hard thing to find now, it would be interesting to the board to understand that, but I'd be okay with a follow-up as well.
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I might have to follow up with you. I don't want to just
That's
throw
totally
out
fine. Yeah,
Wow.
it would just be helpful as we kind of think about this. And perhaps actually next year, we're able to review this a little bit earlier. And also we can see some statistics next year just about how often we were receiving extension requests and how many letters of non-compliant, sort of a more a comparative reporting on sort of the impact of these extensions would be helpful for next year. But I don't think personally I'm okay with not having that today, just having it as follow-up. Are there, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that sounds great. I completely agree. So I think last year too, what we did, we gave periodic updates after the approval of our ability to accept these extension requests, and I think every few months we checked in and gave an update on who or how many people requested extensions and for what reasons, and the impact on the compliance rate as a result. So we can continue to do that this year.
Great, that's great. Thank you. Are there any other questions or points of discussion from the board? Board Member Ellis?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask for Aiden or member of the environmental staff to give us a quick presentation in about a month or two, just highlighting the status of how many folks have reported and where they're sort of falling in terms of their emission compliance. And I can turn it back over to you, Chair, or I can make a motion. So either one is fine.
Why don't we keep things rolling? Why don't you make a motion, Board
No
Member Ellis?
problem. And I'll also send it to you in the chat. Motion to delegate authority to the Environment Department to approve up to 2 3-month extension requests for building owners facing extenuating circumstances contingent upon adherence to the outline filing process.
Second.
Thank you. All right, so on the motion to approve the city's proposal, how do you vote? I vote in favor. Board Member Ellis?
In favor.
Board Member Ferris?
In favor.
Board Member Lattimore?
In favor.
Board Member Nelson?
In favor.
Board Member Stovall?
In favor.
All right, the ayes have it. Motion passes. We'll look forward to hearing about how the submissions go in the coming months. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to move on to our fourth agenda item, which is approving previous meeting minutes. We'll do the minutes separately. We were not able to do them in our last meeting. So first, are there any questions or comments regarding the meeting minutes on April 14th? Any questions or comments on the meeting minutes on April 28th? Is there a motion to approve the April 14th and April 28th minutes?
Motion to approve the April 14 minute.
I'll second. On the motion to approve the meeting minutes, the board members may vote in favor, oppose, or abstain if they did not attend the meeting. Those in favor of approving the minutes can say aye or show hands.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Board member first, do you need to abstain?
Yes, I'm abstaining. I was not present.
Okay. All right. So we everyone voted in favor except for board member Ferris, who needed to abstain. So so we have accepted the minutes. We've already accepted the mission of the board in being here tonight. Before I hand it over to staff, I just wanted to recommend that in our last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the MATEP plant, which services a lot of the hospitals that are serving the city of Boston, and we're sort of in between receiving compliance plans from those hospitals. And so I thought that it would be helpful to understand a little bit more about both MATEP and the city's relationship with MATEP in a coming meeting, so that we can all be on the same page of understanding prior to our continued review of hospital compliance plans. Does anyone have any concerns about that idea? Board member Ellis.
Chair, is this in regards to the meeting minutes for April 28th?
This is a separate, sorry, it is not about the meeting minutes.
Okay.
It was more that there were a number of comments from the public in the public hearing about MATEP itself, and it seemed to me like there was both a variety of understanding about the plant and also it's a state regulated facility that the city has communicated with the state about and has some influence over, but doesn't control, nor do necessarily all of the those that are using it. And we've reviewed some hospital plans from people that are using MATEP and some that haven't, but I know we have some others coming up. And so I just thought it would be helpful to have a short presentation just to make sure all the board members are on the same page, just because it was a major point of discussion in the last meeting and we didn't really get to talk about sort of like what that was in specific.
Okay, I
Yeah.
appreciate that context, Chair. Is it possible? So just want to make sure, are we able to approve the April 28th minutes before we jump into that discussion, or do we want to have that discussion before approving the minutes?
Sorry, there were no separate comments about the minutes from the two different meetings. So the motion, I thought, included both. Did it only include one?
It only included April 14th.
Oh, I apologize. I thought we had done them both together. All right.
No problem.
So then before I begin that, I make a motion to approve the April 28th minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So again, we'll vote. Raise your hand to approve. If you're in favor of approving the minutes from April 28th, or unmute and say aye. 2. Are there abstentions?
I abstained.
Okay. Yes, Board Member Lattimore, are you voting?
That was just voting. Sorry, I was having difficulty getting off mute. Sorry.
It's okay. What's your vote?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
But if it's appropriate, I would like to just follow up on your suggestion about the staff presenting on MATEP. I think that is would be very helpful.
Great. Thank you. Board Member Nelson, can you vote on the motion?
Yes, I said aye.
Oh, great. Okay. All right, great. So we have approved the minutes. Board Member Ferris abstained, and then my bad. So minutes are all approved. And it sounds like there are no major concerns on behalf of the board of just doing kind of a point of information presentation at a future meeting about MATEP to make sure we're all on the same page about sort of how it works and the dynamics around it. Great. And yeah, board member Nelson.
Oh, no, nothing.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say that I have a extensive knowledge of that plant. And I've worked with all the hospitals that plug into that plant. So I could answer any questions that people may have about how it works and how they utilize energy from the plant.
That is great because we thought that this might be your final BERDO meeting, but it sounds like we may invite you back.
Well, I'm just, if there are specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or just give a general overview of what the plant does.
Okay.
Yes, and Chair,
yeah.
city staff can also provide just general background on district energy systems, so both vicinity and MATEP and how they function and how they are connected to BERDO buildings and provide that general context as well.
For Lattimore.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good. And I think it would be helpful to give the board time to review minutes from the last meeting for those that weren't there or for those who were to recollect the conversation from the meeting and then do this in a future meeting for sure.
I agree. Okay. All right. Great. So why don't we plan on doing it at a future meeting, and we'll let people know. Again, I don't think it needs to be a gigantic agenda item, but because it is sort of a different kind of way that some buildings are being served and that there's a multiplicity of users, it seemed like it would be helpful. Yeah, board member Ellis.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Board Member Lattimore, for mentioning that. I just want to also ask the city, knowing that the city can present as well as Jack Nelson can present, but please let us, if we need to utilize the services of our decarbonization firm, I'm forgetting their name as I speak to you right now, please feel free to invite them to engage in the conversation as well.
Great. And I can also add, just adding on to the adding on, Chair. So for folks who are newer to the board, maybe some helpful context is we did have a technical consultant advisor sort of do like a 101 on district energy systems and sort of how MATEP and vicinity are set up. But we're happy to, it's a good point, Chair, that yes, RDH was the technical consultant. It is a good point that because we also have a new crop of board members, it may be helpful to sort of do a refresher on those types of on that information.
Be great. Thank you. So I know that we have some administrative updates, and we didn't get to all of them last month or last week too. So I want to hand it over to Ziggy to give you time to do that.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind everybody that the BERDO team hosted 2 information sessions for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund in April. The recordings and slide deck are now up on the fund website at boston.gov/BERDO-fund under the info session tab. And we also put information about the last year's awardees and last year's info session. If any members of the public who are interested in applying for the fund want to check those out. Also, we have completed all in-person BERDO neighborhood workshops for this year. So as a reminder, the workshops offer tailored building consultations across different stages of BERDO compliance. So we have some people that are just hearing about BERDO for the first time, people who need some help with reporting and learning about flexibility measures. So the neighborhoods that were chosen were targeted because they had a higher density of BERDO buildings and residential condo associations. And in total, we conducted about 55 building consultations with building owners and property managers across Boston. And the consultations could lasted from 20 minutes to people who stay there for 2 hours or the whole time. Also, I want to bring up that in June 2025, the Environment Department is planning to open a public process to update BERDO regulations related to flexibility measure applications and other BERDO procedures. Next week, the BERDO team is going to launch a survey to help us understand what issues building owners have been facing when applying for flexibility measures and fulfilling other obligations under BERDO. And we will use this information to identify the best ways to streamline flexibility measure applications and other review board procedures. We will allocate time in the next BERDO review board meeting to give the board and the public an opportunity to provide suggestions and feedback. And then this feedback will directly inform the first draft of regulation language the Environment Department will present to the Air Pollution Control Commission next month. And also just want to remind that the next meeting is scheduled on May 27th, which is a Tuesday, because we moved it for Memorial Day, and we'll plan to hear the first hardship compliance application. And also that May 30th is the deadline for the Equitable Emission Investment Fund application cycle for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to thank Board Member Jack Nelson. I believe this is his last meeting, unless we call him back to talk about MATEP or take him up on that or other things. But I've only been able to serve with you together for a short period of time, but during that time, you've just provided so much invaluable insight, and I know that you've been such a huge part of building up both the role of this board and just the implementation of BERDO and the city's efforts for decarbonization. So want to thank you and acknowledge you for your service.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone else for all you do. I think this ordinance is well thought out and it's being well executed. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Before motioning to adjourn, I just wanted to quickly check, sorry. Ziggy or Diana, how many applications have we received thus far for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund? Just so I understand how much more marketing y'all need to do.
Yeah, we've received one application so far, but that's not abnormal. Last year we received, I think, all of our applications like within 24 hours of the closing date. So my understanding is that folks really want to wait till they really have to submit just to like get have all the eyes review, have everyone proofread, etc. So I think, but we have heard from people, I've heard from various sources that they're planning on applying. So I know we do have at least a number of applicants who will be submitting.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, can I have on the motion to adjourn the meeting, board members in favor say aye, either unmute yourself or raise your hand.
All right.
Great. All right, unanimous vote. Thank you, everyone. The ayes have it and the motion passes. The meeting is adjourned at 5:59 p.m. Thanks, everyone, for today's meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you all.